Greetings, dear viewers. It is I, Drayhon, back once again with another character conversion for Dungeons and Dragons. Today we are taking a look at another Planeswalker from Magic the Gathering. This Planeswalker is one I don't actually use, much like my previous Planeswalker video. At least one of them anyway. But Nahiri, the Planeswalker we are covering today, is still a pretty interesting Planeswalker, with a pretty good story. Now, Nahiri used to be in league with two other Planeswalkers. Soren Markov, a vampire Planeswalker from Innistrad, and Ugin. I'll probably just call him Ugin from now on because I don't know how to pronounce his name. The Spirit Dragon. Ujin's actually one of my favorite Planeswalkers because he's a dragon. Who doesn't love dragons? Anyway, Nahiri is, according to the Magic Gathering series, Nahiri is what is known as a lithomancer. She controls the earth and able to create weapons with it. That's her main use for it. But she and Soren had a falling out because she felt that he broke a promise. Or something. I don't quite remember what it all entailed. The wiki that I read up on them was kind of vague. Anyway, let's go ahead and start with stats using the point-buy system, as we always do. Strength and Constitution are going to be our lowest scores at a 10. While she does seem fit as far as Dexterity would go, she doesn't look fit as far as Strength would go. Meaning she can be taken down easily in certain circumstances. Which is why Dexterity and Wisdom are our next stat for 13, Charisma next lowest at a 12. Our highest stat being Intelligence out of 15, and I'm going to explain why here in just a minute. Now, Nahiri's race is Core. I think that's how you pronounce it. Now, the Core race can actually be found in Planeshift Zendikar. I'll make sure to have a link to where you can get Planeshift Zendikar, which, by the way, is on the DM's Guild, and you can get it there. The Core race gives you a +2 in your Dexterity and a +1 in your Wisdom. You also get the following. You get 30 feet speed with a 30 feet climbing speed as long as you are not encumbered or wearing heavy armor. That is important. Skill proficiencies, you get Athletics and Acrobatics, which is pretty good. They're really good climbers, at least according to the lore. You also get the Lucky feature, the Brave feature, so you aren't easily frightened, and you do have 2 languages. Common and the Silent Speech of Core, which is basically sign language. The Core race don't speak too much. They mostly just do hand gestures, just like sign language. They do this because of, there's a lot of sound going on around them, so they want to make sure they get their message clear to their fellow Core, which is why they use sign language. While they are able to speak, they use as few words as possible to get their point across. Oh, tongue-tie. Anyway. Background. We are using the Planeswalker background for this one, which comes from Planeswalkers of Ravnica. I did a review video on this particular file. This is by the same creator who made the Planeshift series. Now, the Planeswalker background gives you the following proficiencies. Arcana and Survival for skills. Tools, one musical instrument or gaming set of your choice. That doesn't really matter too much. Now, languages, you get one of your choice. I would recommend either grabbing Elvish because of your plane of Zendikar, there are elves there, or Vampire because of Sorin. Because, according to Nahiri's lore, Sorin was actually Nahiri's mentor. So it would make sense for Nahiri to have the language of vampires. And when she was on Innistrad, people thought she was an ancient vampire. That's not too important, but what is important is the language you choose. Again, go with either Elvish or Vampire. Feature, you get the Planeswalker Spark, which lets you cast the 4th level spell known as Planeswalk, which is only usable by creatures with the Planeswalker background. Now, Nahiri's official classes and subclasses. Nahiri is known as a Lithomancer or a Stone Forger. Now, upon research, the Lithomancer is a subclass of the Wizard, while the Stone Forger is a subclass of the Artificer, which is an odd combination of classes. However, there's just one problem. There are no such subclasses in Dungeons & Dragons. I have looked throughout every single file that I have from the DM's Guild. No lithomancy, no stone forging. However, there are a couple of subclasses you can use that would suffice, though they're not exact. Now that I think about it, there is a way to create your own subclasses in Dungeons & Dragons. I think I just found out what I'm going to do for my first Twitch stream. Okay, off topic. Since I did mention Twitch, if you did not see my last video, I now have a Twitch channel. I'll probably put a link in the description for that. You can find me under the name Drehan Data Corrupted. Anyway, moving on. We are going to go over Nahiri's classes, starting with Wizard. Because it makes the most sense to start off with a bunch of spells. And wizards do have a few earth and stone-based spells that we could start off with. So, when starting off with a wizard, you get a 1d6 hit die, and your hit points are going to be 6 plus your constitution modifier. But since you have a 10 constitution currently, you only have 6 hit points. You're pretty weak. Unfortunately. I was originally going to go with a martial subclass, but I decided to be as accurate as possible. So we're going with wizard. Now, skills go with investigation and insight. Your spellcasting modifier is intelligence. You get arcane recovery. Once you get your next level, grab the artificer class. Again, this is a very odd combination. The artificers, in my opinion, are like a tech cleric. It's still kind of odd to mix spellcaster classes together, in my opinion. Pretty much the same as the wizard, although they're a little bit more tougher with a 1d8 for their hit die. And you get, since you're multi-classing with the artificer, you only get the light armor, medium armor, shields for your armor proficiency, and your tool proficiency is only thieves' tools and tinker's tools. You get the magical tinkering and your artificer spell casting, which uses intelligence as well. Alright, moving on to a level 2 artificer, we get the infuse item. Now let's go ahead and go to level 2 wizard. And the archetype we're going to be using is going to be different because we can use either transmutation or war magic. Those are the best things I could find. You could probably, if your dungeon master allows it, you could probably mix the two schools together. But another one that could probably fit is the Blade Singer. Again, you'd have to talk to your DM about this one because this one is restricted to elves. But any of these subclasses for the wizard would fit Nahiri's style somewhat. Again, it would be preferable if there was actually a Lithomancer subclass, but whatever, we'll make do. War magic might be the best one to go with for this build style. If you don't have access to war magic or the Blade Singer, just go with transmutation. Now, for the third level of Artificer, we're taking a look at the archetypes of Eberron, which can be found on the DM's Guild. I'll make sure to have a link in the description. This one's a little bit more finicky, because this archetype is called the Crystal Shaper. It is the closest I can get to the Stoneforger, just by name. But it's still a decent subclass. Not one I would use personally, but it's still a pretty decent subclass. With the Crystal Shaper, you get tool proficiency in Jeweler's Tools. Your spells are going to be Charm Person and Dissonant Whispers. You get the Psi Crystal Affinity and Psionic Augmentation, which allows you to use special crystals to do certain things. Like one of the crystals gives you immunity to being charmed, but if you use the Psionic Augmentation, it trying to remember what it does. I think it causes fear on a creature. I don't quite remember, but it's the closest thing I can think of until I make my own subclasses. Alright, so moving on, we're going to go to a level 4 Artificer. If you want to go with the ability score improvement, grab 1 in Dexterity and 1 in Intelligence. If you want to grab a feat, I would suggest Dual Wielder. Most of Nahiri's art shows Nahiri with 2 swords, most likely made of stone or some sort of crystalline substance. So Dual Wielder would make the most sense. You get a +1 to your AC while wielding a separate melee weapon in each hand. You can use 2-weapon fighting even when the one-handed melee weapons you are holding aren't light. So what it's basically saying is that you can use 2 different longswords for the dual wield. More or less. You can draw or stow 2 one-handed melee weapons when you would normally be able to draw or stow owning 1. This is one of those, I guess, video game tropes where you basically unsheath 2 swords on opposite scabbards. Now, we're going to be skipping level 3 Wizard because you don't get anything with it except a new spell slot. We're going straight to level 4 Wizard. If you have not gotten any feats thus far and just want to stay with the ability score improvements, increase your charisma by 2. Because during the Eldrazi run in Innistrad, Nahiri had some followers that sort of worshipped her, if I remember correctly. So having a somewhat high charisma would make sense. Now for your feat, this is an Unearthed Arcana feat called Fighting Initiate. Go ahead and grab 2-weapon fighting. Gives you a fighting style. If I didn't make that clear. So your fighting style is going to be 2-weapon fighting. So you'll be able to engage in 2-weapon fighting. When you do engage in 2-weapon fighting, you can add your ability modifier to the second attack. And that will be all I cover for you today. Next time you see me, I will be going over Nahiri's ex-partner / mentor, Soren Markov. Until next time, my dear viewers, this has been Drehan, and I am offline.